Hello and welcome. This evening I thought I would give a general overview of my loading bench. I've already had an inquiry or two come across since the last video was posted where I briefly mentioned my loading bench and the setup, and so I thought what I would do is just kind of give an overview tonight and some general ideas in terms of our loading bench and maybe some of the high points that you should kind of look at when purchasing or setting up a bench as if one that you've been working on, or maybe you're beginning one for the first time. Just some of my ideas. So I'm going to spin the camera around here, forgive me. And what we can see here is that we have my reloading bench. And the first thing you'll notice is that this bench is very, very small. And it appears to be a bit jumbled at times, and maybe a little bit crowded. This bench, just in case, so you'll know, so in case you're working on something similar of your own, from this end down here, all the way down to this end over here, is 44 inches, I believe. And then I believe it's something like in the back, and maybe it's 24 inches deep or something like that. And so what we have here is just a bench that I have developed. When I say developed, I have built and cut and pasted and cut and pasted some more until it became pretty much what we see here. I call it the Franken bench because that's really kind of the history of it in terms of what it has looked like and how it has been configured over the years. The first thing that you'll notice, outside of the fact that it is a small bench, is the amount of light. I'm not even sure how this is coming in on the camera. I know it's actually seeming to freak the camera out a little bit because there's so much light out in front of it, and it's kind of freaking things out. But if you'll notice, there is quite a bit of light back there, starting with light that I have in overhead coming down from the ceiling. Those are just little LED light bars that I get from Lowe's or Menards or something, and install those, in various places around the bench. And then I have also LED bars up top here, and then there's also an LED light strip up under here to light that shelf and the back of the table. And then I also have more lighting up under here, up under the bottom of the bench, so that that bottom shelf and the floor is illuminated, because God knows you're always dropping stuff on the floor. So I'm seated at my bench. I'm not on a high workbench chair or bar stool or anything like that. I'm just seated in a regular kitchen style chair. It's a nice comfortable chair. It's a chair that fits behind this bench very well because space is limited. And so that's the first thing you notice about this bench is the lighting. So it is, a very important high point that I do like to talk about. I even have lighting on this corner here that is actually aimed from this corner over to the beam scale over there. So I actually have a set of lights. This whole job is just to illuminate that beam scale for me. And so when somebody comes into this bench for the first time and I throw the switch, they're like, good God, that thing's lit up like a Christmas tree. And I said, well, I certainly hope so, because I need to see. I want to be able to see things. I want to be able to, read the scale. I want to be able to, see what's going on with cases, checking things out when doing the various case prep and stuff. I'm inspecting cases and stuff. Seating bullets, very important to have good light so you can actually see what's going on with your seating depth when you're, pushing bullets in and turning calibration there, and, just a million reasons to have a good amount of illumination on your bench. The other thing about this bench is, for all the bigger it is, this is a sturdy, heavy bench. The tabletop is now 3 inches thick. It's got 2 layers of board that are screwed together with deck screws, and then they're affixed to a frame and legs that go down the sides on either side to the floor, and then it goes down in the back. There are more legs and framing that goes all the way to the floor in the back. And so that makes this bench very, very sturdy for all the bigger it is. One of the things that I did that gives me a great advantage in that department is way down under there, clear in the back, underneath all of that, back in toward the very back, almost down on the floor, but it does sit on a bench that is attached up off the floor and it's attached to the frame of this whole bench is lead ingots. In fact, there are over 500 pounds of lead ingots. At one time, there was almost a half a ton of lead down there. holding this bench to the floor. Basically, just holding it down. This bench is going nowhere. When I first moved in here with my girlfriend, one day she pulled into the garage, and this bench was, I just was kind of getting it set up, and it was kind of sat in a place where she really, she thought maybe it was sitting a little too far forward into her parking area, I guess. And so she had a big SUV, and so she thought she would just get up against the bench there with her bumper and, just kind of maybe slide the whole bench back an inch or two or three or whatever. I don't really know. Who knows what's going on in the heads of the ladies sometimes. But that's what she thought she was going to do. And at that time, as I say, there was probably, on top of all this other weight and, construction of this bench, there was nearly half a ton of lead down underneath there. So when she tried to move this bench, it didn't work out very well for her bumper, because at that point, this bench is weighing, something on the order of a large, well-built motorcycle. So she just was surprised. And I said, yeah, don't try that again, because that bench is not going anywhere, and it doesn't. There's a little bit of play. If you really push on it, you can see things do move a little bit, but you can't push this bench around, and it's very sturdy for reloading purposes. And I'm very pleased with it. It has undergone quite a bit of development and evolution over the years, and so this is kind of where it has ended up. One other major consideration, aside from lighting, aside from sturdiness of your bench, is what you see over here. This is my scale, which I mentioned before is illuminated with a light bar shining right on it so that I can see it from over here. And over there I've got my trickler, I got my check weights for the scale, a couple other things sit there, little scoops and stuff. And that particular stand, you will notice, is sitting on a table. And then the whole thing sits on a stand all by itself. That table is not attached to this bench in any way. It doesn't touch the bench. It's not attached to the bench. It sits on the same concrete floor as the bench, but that's the extent of it. The reason for that is, at one time, I had my beam scale and on the bench with everything else, and I found that sometimes it was just fluctuating, giving me weird readings, inconsistent readings, and I could not figure it out. It was driving me nuts. And so I did some investigation, did some reading, got on YouTube, and here what it is that just the vibrations from pulling handles on your presses, when you're doing, especially things when you're doing, full-length resizing, or, popping the, like over there, that's your swager die over there for taking out military crimps. Some of that, you're kind of horsing it a little bit. Well, that sets up a lot of vibration in the bench, and that was messing up the scale. That scale is a very fine-tuned piece of equipment once you get it set up. It's a balance scale, and it's set up on a very fine, whatever it is there, a glass and beryllium or whatever, fulcrum there. The weights all hang on it, in a certain way. The pans, they're set up to hang on it a certain way, and you get it on that stand, and like I say, at the time it was sitting on the bench, but you start introducing all that vibration. Well, then in fact that scale actually starts moving around, and the fulcrum gets out of position. The scale itself may walk a little bit across the bench, even if it moves, a hundredth of an inch every once in a while. Like, that stand is not perfect. It is not level. The scale is level because I've check weighted it, down to, 1 grain, well, actually less than a grain, more like 1/10 of a grain. And so, I know that the scale is on because I use the check weights to double check it, and it's on. It's always on. I can always get it on. And, it's just better to not have any of the vibrations from your bench over here, from all the pulling and, shucking and jiving you're doing with brass over here, affect that scale anyway. And so I would highly recommend, do not set your beam scale or even your electronic scale on the bench. It just messes it up. And I've thought about electronic scale here. They're very nice. I'm always impressed when I see you guys using them. on the interwebs, but this is a garage, and it gets very cold here in Nebraska. And I've had small electric scales, jeweler scales and stuff. Tried to use them, and it just doesn't work. It throws them off way too much out here in the cold or the heat or whatever. If it's summertime, and I don't have time to be fooling with it, and so I don't mind the beam scale. And I just, I choose not to spend the $300 on an electronic scale that may or may not work out here. So, that being said, so we've got, have your bench, no matter how big it is, have it be really stiff and steady and heavy, and, maybe put some warning signs on it if you've got a crazy girlfriend, so she doesn't run into it with the car and hurt her car. And then get lots of light on the matter. Very, very important. Get lots of light. And then you keep your beam scale away from your bench. Keep it away from all the vibrations. Keep it all by itself, and you'll be much happier, I believe. Maybe moving on to things that are a little more specific about this bench. You see, I have it's jumbled. There's no doubt, but everything I know right where everything is, and everything has a place on this bench. No matter how unkempt the top of this table gets, I still pretty much know where everything is because everything's got a place. And so you can see in the back here, this is just a piece of 2x4 that I've taken and marked and then drilled a whole bunch of pilot holes in it. I think they're like 3/4 inch holes, perhaps, drilled maybe 3/4 of the way through that board. And then I've marked it, as you can see, 30-06, 308, 8mm, and I think that's 5.56 down at the end. And then all the dies that I have for those different calibers, that's where they stay, because I'm operating single stage presses. It's not like I've got a progressive press or a turret press where I'm keeping everything hooked up to the an individual press all the time. I have to use my dies and my presses one at a time. So to keep them at hand, they're all right there, because sometimes I'm changing from one caliber to the next, and I just don't want to go digging through all those boxes and stuff, finding the right set of dies and digging around for shell holders and stuff. And so all of those dies live back there where I can reach them. Some dies actually live up here as well. And what you can see is I've got more holes drilled for things here, and also down in the legs. There's some specific dies for things that I do on this press a lot on this side. And so that's kind of where those dies live, so they're always right at hand when I'm swapping them around. I also have a number of these blocks that I've drilled with various size holes. Give some 3/4 inch ones for your dies and some other things for tools. So I can just, all those things go in somewhere or another. I've got a hole drilled in the bench, and there's, everything from trimmers to, hand tools, primer pocket tools of one kind or another, case prep tools, your reamers and your chamfering and all that stuff. I actually have a beveler kind of mounted in the front of that. That's for, I find that to be handy for like 243. You're not taking off a whole lot of metal when you're chamfering the neck of a 243. So after it gets trimmed, I just, hold it right up there and give it a little twist. I don't have to worry about putting that thing in another drill or something, setting that up. I can just couple, a little bit of twisting on that chamfering tool right there. It fixes up those 223 or 5.56 necks just fine, and then they're ready to be primed and loaded and thrown in an ammo box. So, set things up the way you like them. Get all your stuff where you can reach it, where you have access to it, and whatever you've got to do, don't feel bad about drilling holes, hanging stuff. I mean, I've got screws screwed in the back there, wood screws and whatnot. I've got stuff hanging off of them, for different things. There's batteries back there. There's cleaning brushes. There's also a couple magnets. This is a magnet, actually. This is a magnet over here. And what those do, for small parts, hex keys, drill bits, stuff that I use all the time. When I'm done with them, they just go back up there and stick to the magnet. And that works out because, again, they're at hand. So keep your stuff at hand. Keep it organized and keep it at hand. I do that to the point you probably see all of those little pieces of, well, they're not little, they're, recipe cards. And what those are the recipe cards for all of the favorite loads for everything that I reload for. And so generally there's one per caliber up there, and all the load data, case measurements, max lengths, ogive lengths, bullet weights, powder charges, everything is on those cards. So as I'm switching back and forth, I don't have to go all the way back into my notes, into the manual, and dig up information, on those loads to get set up here to switch and get going on the next little project. All I got to do is, take out the dies that I'm using, put them away, empty the powder out, get the old powder, whatever the powder is I'm not going to use, get that cleared off the bench, and then move all the new stuff in and just look up there, and there it is. I'm good to go. My scale's right over there. Check weights are right there. I can get set up really fast on a new powder charge and rock and roll, without even having to get up out of this chair, which is really, really cool to me. So, you can see also, just in terms of keeping things at hand, on the end, you notice there's a shop vac over there, and that's plugged in, and it's kind of, the hose is kind of balled up, and I can just reach over there, turn that shop vac on, and sweep this whole bench, all the floor, everything around, behind me, under me, clean off the scale stand over here, and get everything picked up at the end of the day, and that thing just stays right there. That particular shop vac doesn't do anything else but service the reloading bench. That's the deal with that. And, so keep the things that you need at hand so that you're not having to get up and go scramble around, look for stuff, keep your stuff organized, keep it together, whatever you got to do. Like I say, I just, I like to have, when I'm working on stuff, I like to be able to, if I need to set it down, I don't have three hands. If I need a third hand, like this here, I've got one. This is coming off from the scale over here. Sometimes, and this is be my bullet seating press. Sometimes I need to do something else, so I'll actually set my charge case right there for a second. That's a hole. It takes anything that's a 30-06 head size, which is a lot of different calibers, 30-06 and 308 and 243, 270, 8mm Mauser, and even 45 ACP all have pretty much the same head size. So they all fit right in that hole. You stand the case there for a second if I need to. I don't have to worry about sitting it somewhere, knocking it over, knocking the powder out, everything on the floor. It just goes right in there, and it stays there until I need to grab it and put it, over in the press. And so, don't be afraid to drill holes in stuff and hang stuff on your bench. I mean, if that makes it easier for you. I'm envious of all the guys that I see with these giant benches and everything, perfectly organized and looks great. The guy on Johnny's reloading bench, I kind of hate him because his bench always just looks beautiful. I mean, no matter what he's doing, everything, from his reloading trays to all of his dies and, everything, he just does a great job. And, I'm very jealous of Johnny on Johnny's reloading bench because he just makes it look easy, having all your stuff organized right in front of you, where this doesn't look easy, but it's effective. This looks like a little hard. It's like it's a little jumbled, but trust me, everything's clean. Everything is there. Everything always goes back in the same spot. It has for years. Everything has its own little spot. And so I know right where everything is. Even those dies in the back there, various dies go in the same hole every time. So I know if I need the 8mm seating die, I know right where it is. If I need the 5.56 factory crimp die, I know right where it is. It's over here, because that's where the crimp dies live, along with the swaging die set kind of lives over there. And my universal decapper lives over there. And so set your bench up the way you want. Don't make apologies to anybody, because there's no right way to do it. There's only the way that works best for you, way to do it. And so that's kind of what I've done here. As I say, I've reconfigured this bench a number of times. When I just got sick of something that wasn't working, I was like, man, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna get out there with a jigsaw or whatever and start hacking and make it work, and cutting up some lumber and screwing it down and getting it to where it actually did what I wanted it to do. And I'm always, I'm much happier having a bench that is kind of configurable and lots of storage. I mean, I got the shelves back there. Up at the top, that's actually my gun bench up top there. I stand around the back of this because space is so limited here in this garage. So up on top, there's actually gun cleaning, and there's actually a complete full 6-inch vise over there. And there's another small, like 1.5-inch vise on that side, Dremel tool hanging there because I am a gunsmith. And then, there's always a gun vise of some sort up there for cleaning guns or, hanging guns in it to do stuff, working on, builds or whatever. And then down under here, I actually have some of those handy dandy little tool and I don't know, screw and nut trays that you can get at Lowe's. I keep those. Those are actually permanently mounted, and you can see I just throw all whatever crap I need to in there for the moment. And that's where that stuff goes, and those are very handy. So get yourself a lot of storage, and get yourself maybe something that's a little, if you have to change it, you have to move the lighting around a little bit. On this particular bench, these two presses are mounted permanently along with the powder dispenser in the middle. But over here, this particular press, which is exactly the same kind of Pacific Sea press as that one, but it's not mounted permanently. It's mounted to a block of wood, and the block of wood is C-clamped. So it's C-clamped to the desktop. And so if I need to take it out of there so I can put something else up there, I have another little vise that could go there, mounted on a block of wood. It's also to be just C-clamped down. If I was ever to get some sort of case prep, tool, like one of those nice Hornady, 3 tool stations that's electric, that would fit there pretty nice, I think. And so, maybe when I was doing that kind of operation, I'd move that press out and work that there. But it gives me some space across here. I used to have my dispenser was also fixed up like this on a block of wood and then clamped, but I found that I kind of kept it in the same spot anyway. So I just eventually just screwed that thing to the desktop, and it's happy there. Works out good. I have a little bit of, you can buy these, any kind of flexible lighting. This is actually a battery pack. It does plug in to your phone cord. You can charge it. And this one here, it's great for, lighting up some extra light when you're trying to see some detail. If you're seating bullets or you're working on brass, or what usually happens is I get something stuck or fouled up, and I've got something jammed up, and the arm won't go up or down. I got to see what's going on. Well, it's great to have some light there to see exactly what I screwed up this time, and get that taken care of. And it's just always great. And this light does have a bit of flexibility. I can move it around, get it on the other press over here if I need to. I can move it to the back. I can even, shine it down on the floor or something if I need to. It's just great because it gives you a light that's movable and you don't need a third hand. So that's what you're up against all the time. You need a third hand. You need places to put stuff down and be able to come right back to it and get it. As you can see, I just have all of these. These are all Lee trimmers, which I hardly use anymore. But they've all got their own hole. They all just kind of fit down in that. And so every one, all my brushes, all my primer, pocket cleaners, and reamers, somewhere around here. Yeah, right here is a flash hole deburr. Everybody needs to have their flash hole deburred once in a while, and so that's there. And so I don't have to go digging around wondering where it is in some toolbox, or stuck somewhere back behind a tray or something. It's always right out here up front, right where I can grab it, and that really makes it makes a huge difference when you can get it set up the way you want and operate that way, the way you want. And so I guess that's probably a good place to finish. We've kind of hit the high points. Again, sturdiness of your bench, the comfort of it, sitting at it or standing at it, whatever. This one just kind of low to the ground. I got my feet on the ground. I kind of like that. I'm not up on a bar stool. I don't think I could work that way. And then, so it's comfortable to sit at. It's very, very sturdy. It's well lit. I've got a little bit of flexibility for all of my storage here to keep all of my stuff at hand. And the important thing, which sometimes is overlooked by people, is keep your bloody scale away from your bench top, so the vibrations from the bench don't jack up your scale all the time. That scale needs to be still and quiet as much as possible, so that you're not moving it around and having the gravity change on the fulcrum and the weights that are hanging on it and stuff. It's always weighing the same because it's not moving, it's not being shook, and that's very, very, very important. And so that's kind of the high points. If you have any questions, comments, something else you'd like me to cover, I may come back at some point and kind of demonstrate how I go through some case prep and stuff using this kind of strange triple single stage press deal. People that come here to my bench and sit down and try to work at it, sometimes they just don't like it. They sit down, and that's basically because I'm left-handed. So I've got my two of my main presses that I do. Like I do most of my work on this press, but I do some work on this press, and then this, of course, is my powder dispenser here in the middle. But I'm left-handed, so somebody else sits down at this, and they're like, "This is screwed up. I can't work like this." You know, my scale's over here on the left side because I'm left-handed, and so somebody else sits down, and it's all backward for them. So chances are, if you do your bench the way somebody tells you to, something about it's going to be backward for you too. So figure out what works for you and set your bench up that way. Don't do it. Don't get yourself into a position where you can only have your bench one way. I have turned this bench around in this garage a million times, just so I could, I couldn't figure out if I needed shelves in front of me, shelves in back of me. Where was the powder going to sit? How would I get in and out even, from around in this tight space? And so I finally have come up with, something that I think works pretty well. The lighting overhead is fantastic, and the lighting on the bench is great. The bench is, it's nice and heavy and sturdy. It's not going anywhere. It gives me, it's always, it's always ready to go. That's the way I keep things on this top of this workbench. Is that I can sit down at any time. I keep stuff, on the floor, which I won't show you the floor, but I keep ammo boxes, Tupperware, kitty litter jugs that I use to sort and store brass in different stages of case prep. I mark all those things. I use those note cards. If there's something specific I need to do to a certain batch of brass and it's all in a jug, I'll write whatever that procedure is coming up next. And if I'm going to be gone for a couple of days, I just write what needs to be done next. I write it right down on that card and I just drop it right in the jug or right on top of the brass in the Tupperware. And then when I come back and I start to work, okay, what needs to be done with that brass? If you don't have a note on it or something, you're never going to figure it out. It's just a pile of brass. And so this way I can pick it up and say, oh yeah, that stuff's ready to be primed, or that stuff's, it's all junked. I just picked that up from the range. It needs to be, decapped and, thrown in a tumbler or something. But yeah, just, be afraid to write on stuff. Don't be afraid to drill on stuff. Don't be afraid to, to run extension cords around if you got to. Just be safe. And, that's part of the fun of it, setting it up the way you need it to work for you. And, just don't be afraid to experiment, and don't be afraid to have your bench set up the way that makes you happy, because you're the guy that's going to be sitting here pulling the handles for hours and hours and hours. So you may as well be set up the way you want it. So thank you. I appreciate again all the questions that are coming in and the support. If you can, please like, share, subscribe to the Team Mosin YouTube channel and the Team Mosin Facebook page, and get at me with questions or whatever through Facebook, or you can put them in the comments section here if there's something I can help you with or something you want to see covered. Don't be afraid to ask me, and I will certainly try to attend to that. So anyway, I'm glad you stuck around. I hope some of this was informative, and I wish you all the best until next time. Thank you.